It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry do what it takes. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Windy City's Finest. I am Perry, and we are joined here today by Will. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're doing here today?
Totally, yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, welcome everybody. Glad to have you all here. So my name is William Baliko, and I am a member of the Company of Blackspears, which is the Lethbridge local team for Hacksaw, which is a national league here in Canada of armored combat fighters. But yeah, it's a lovely Saturday afternoon, and we're enjoying a relaxed practice here. And the two fighters at the moment that are going at it is Graham in the blue and Ken in the red. But yeah, a good fight, and they're just wrapping up at this point. Okay. But yeah, feel free. I'll pass the mic back for some questions. And
yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is very warm today. And you said this is a relaxed practice. Yes. So is it kind of like wind, rain, and shine that you kind of practice? Like, can you speak to that a little bit? And
yeah, no, that's a really good one. We actually really enjoy winter practice. We'll do this all year round. And yeah, this is the venue that we're often at here, which is down in Lethbridge at Lake Henderson. And it's nice because there's enough tree coverage that we can all escape into the shade when it's hot like this. And this is kind of nice because there's a bit of a breeze right now, so it's not as hot as it has been.
Can you feel?
Oh yes, yeah. That's actually.
Can you feel the breeze in there? Yeah, maybe.
So in this heat, it's kind of nice. I think we're only in like the maybe mid 20s right now, so not bad by any standards. But when we're fighting and sparring and practicing, we're wearing a number of layers. This first layer that you can see that's kind of a grayish color is a gambeson, and so that's picture like a winter coat really. And then on top of that, we have all of our steel and leather armor. So it's a bit warm in here. It's a bit toasty, but it definitely helps you with the workout for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you do this all year round, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we do favor the winter for sure.
Yeah.
It's quite comfortable at that point. I don't know. Okay, cool,
good, yeah.
Sweet. I don't know. The winter practice is honestly quite enjoyable because then you're at a nice temperature. It's not too hot, not too cold. And yeah, we welcome folks from all backgrounds here. We do a little bit of HEMA, which is historical European martial arts. It's very theoretical based, often on historical manuscripts that have survived the centuries. And we'll use soft weapons like you see here. These two are going at it with a type of polymer synthetic weapon, which is very friendly when you're starting out and when you're just learning or putting together a bit of an armor kit, or just have maybe the soft gambeson layer, things like that. Yeah. And then we'll go all the way up to what's called Buhurt, which is a European form of metal combat with real steel weapons. The only difference between those and the historical ones is a blunted 2mm edge, but otherwise still handsmithed and still just as effective as their predecessors. For sure.
One question that comes to mind here, because you say you do this all year round, does the weather impact the weapons or the armor in any way? Like, yeah, does it impact it differently? Or?
That's a great question. Yes, the short answer is yes. The heat, we are always trying to keep our metal helmets, steel helmets out of the sun because they get very warm. And just like the rest of the body armor, there's a fabric piece underneath that also gets quite warm, usually made out of wool or cotton or linen, which is historical. And so that's quite can get toasty, and you're hot enough when you're in it anyway. So yeah, in the summer that's an issue, keeping the heat away. Obviously, if there's any kind of moisture, whether that's from perspiration or from rain, there's a lot of love and cleaning that goes into caring for your armor kit after each session. So it's quite a disciplined thing. You need to keep up with that, or else you run into not just rusty looking armor, but some security or safety concerns as well in the tournaments. So, and we have pretty strict protocols. Another hat that I wear is the Night Marshal of the Hacksaw League, which is basically like the corporate referee, help design the rule sets and referee the tournaments when they happen. And yeah, we always check the armor and the weapons and of course the fighters quite thoroughly to make sure they're all ready and up to snuff so that they're not going to so that they can continue fighting each other another day.
Yeah, safely and not hurt themselves or anybody else, for sure. Awesome. Are these the same people that are?
Yeah, so now we have still have Graham in the blue there, and then Aiden has joined him as well, and they're doing a combination of sword and buckler, which is the small weapon or small shield that Aiden's got, and then they were doing, or Graham had a sword and regular kite shield. Yeah. So.
Right on.
So what you'll see is Brian, our team captain, and I will do either longsword or saber. I'll let him choose there as the challengee. Yeah. And often what we do in our tournaments is a mix of dueling and melees. And the two differences there is the duels are 1v1s, usually with the same weapon sets. And then the melees are group battles. The largest one that we've had in Canada thus far, I want to say we were around 17 versus 17 on the field. And we have done a 15 versus 15 a couple times on the field. And that's crazy. Once you see, like, there's 30 fighters on the field and, like, it looks like a medieval war. It's insane. It's so cool.
And, like, the thing that comes to mind, you see, like, all those movies where it's, like, old-timey and they're in the arm. And I can't imagine. They would literally go until somebody drops or is actually injured, like, through the battle or probably from the elements.
Yeah, it's actually, that's something historically, like, there's often people, if you get into the research, where, there's losses before the battle starts, and that's the heat, that's the elements, sickness and stuff. It's so cool. We'll do as a team, we'll do armored marches where we'll get kitted up and then march through the coulees as an exercise and team building activity, and it's puts a whole different perspective on the way you view medieval combat and the way it was. Even if you're lightly armored, it's another, quite a bit of weight, quite a bit of heat.
Almost like as much a mental challenge as it is a physical thing. It sounds like, And I also just wanted to touch on, you mentioned like you'd let the other opponent choose, and I've heard that quite a bit here. It feels like people are just like, what do you want to do? And it's like very relaxed, like you said, and that's really cool. Anything else?
Yeah, just to kind of add to that, one of the things that really attracted me to this sport is I used to do a number of different sports growing up and through post-secondary, but there's so much competitiveness in everything that we do that I was, it gets a little tiring. But this is something that's it's amazing because we're such a diverse and ridiculous mix of people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of age groups, and the only thing that we have in common is this love for the medieval sport and for this combat. And so, as crazy as it is, you'll see guys where like they're going at it so hard, and especially in some of the higher competition levels, like they're going like as much as they can, and just completely spent afterwards. But always, without a doubt, they'll come up to each other after the fight. Often they'll actually like hug each other. Oh, wow, and it's the craziest thing to see these two guys who are beating the heck out of each other, and then like they go up and like they're clapping each other on the back, being like, "Good job, man, that was awesome, really enjoyed it." And the ladies too, like it's just amazing sportsmanship that we see, and that's one of the things that keeps me hooked in on it. It's just that camaraderie. No matter who you are, what you've been coming from, what your day to day is like. It's something different when you're here as part of the team.
Yeah, it sounds like it fuels you as much as it fatigues you. Is kind of what I'm getting. Yeah. That's really cool. Sure. And so while the two of you are going at it, would anybody else be willing to like jump in and do like a very simple, straightforward narration? Do you think? Okay, great. We'll be here waiting. Take your time. Yeah. This is so cool. Yeah, I'm in a t-shirt. In shorts and I'm almost sweating. I cannot imagine with all the layers. Wow. Hello again. We are joined this time by Miss Shayla. Hi. And my understanding is that you're going to give us an idea of like maybe some of the points, like if this were a tournament, how the points would maybe work and what they're trying to do. And So I have my first question would be whether or not is there any like starting sequence that you do so you know that the battle is starting or
Yeah, so we have the night marshal come out, and he usually wears, we call it the bumblebee because it's black and yellow, so they're easy to see. And actually, right there, they hit swords. That's
Okay.
one of the things we always do. So you say start fight, the marshal will say start fight after everybody's ready, and then we always do that, just the tap of engagement with each other. Some of our members will actually hold the sword up and do like a bow, or they'll say like for honor, whatever they choose to fight for in the moment.
yeah,
Right now, they're doing saber.
yeah.
And so you can see on William's sword, he actually has, it's called a back edge.
Yeah.
And so if that was a sharp sword, you could actually hurt somebody with that. So he gets points for the back edge, whereas Brian's does not. So he can only hit one side, where William tends to do a lot of wraparound strikes.
Right.
He looks a little flaily, but it's actually very Hungarian traditional fighting.
Right. Yeah.
When we're in a tournament, they'll often hold a dowel in their other hand, which represents a scabbard. And some fighting styles, you can use a scabbard as a weapon. We don't. It's mostly for safety, because if somebody reaches to grab a sword with an open gauntlet, we don't have metal inside, so it can hurt. So the dowel's for safety, and you get extra points if you knock it out of your opponent's hand.
Oh, wow. And so when people are practicing, like so they're both using different weapons. Do you tend to learn roughly all the weapons, or do you just stick to some and not others, or does it just depend on people's preference?
It's usually preference. So in the back, there's axes happening. That's more polearm. We don't have a lot of people into polearm, so these guys are excited that two of them today are here. Saber is really popular with our team here in Lethbridge, and we've made it popular throughout the rest of Alberta. We also have longsword, which is a two-handed sword. We have sword and shield and sword and buckler. And it usually comes down to preference. Some people, the traditional knightly thing is to train in longsword and sword and shield. Those are the more traditional things that people think of. We're introducing axe as a category now, so more of like the two-handed Viking style axe.
Oh,
So it's very much, a preference of what people are interested in.
right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it looks like they're done now. And so when people are done, like in a tournament, for example, or like, is there a certain like rest period that you should take right after a battle, I imagine? Like,
Yeah, so we do our rounds as a minute and a half, and then if people are back to back, we usually try to give them a full minute to recover after. If it's extra hot, we'll do a little bit longer. Some guys want to take their helmets off to breathe. Other guys want to leave it on so they don't have to put it back on.
right.
We try to make it so people don't have back-to-back fights, because a minute and a half seems short when you're not in armor. It's a very long time,
Yeah.
especially because the helmet doesn't get as much oxygen in. So guys can have what's called gassing out, where the carbon dioxide doesn't get out of the helmet, so their brain thinks there's no oxygen. And so that's one of the things for new fighters, is learning to overcome that. And you do a lot of forced exhale to push the air out as you're exhaling. And that's a learned technique so that you can wear your helmet and last through the battle.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in a tournament, like, so how many bouts, I guess, would there be till the finalist or do you know, or does it depend or?
It depends. So like our last tournament that we had up in Bashaw, we had about 20 fighters. And so he tried to space it, like we did round robin where everybody got to fight each other, but he tried to space it so there was a gap between each fighter. Sometimes we had a tournament back in January with like 80 fighters. So we had a lot of back-to-back because we were just going through fast to get everybody into the final rounds. So it really depends on how many fighters we have, how many people have entered the category. For example, we have, I forgot to mention Greatsword, which is like a really, really, really big sword. And that one, we usually have about 4 fighters, so they usually have to fight back-to-back with those ones. And that one is, usually everybody fights everybody in those ones, where other times we'll have pools of fighters, and then the top from those will go to the final rounds.
Right on. And I understand you have a medal, is that right? Would you be able to speak to it? Or?
I technically have 4.
Oh wow, awesome. What are they or what's one of them?
Yeah, so I have gold for women's longsword from 2 tournaments. One that was Canada-wide, and then the one in Bashaw I mentioned. I also have gold for women's sword and shield, and I got gold for women's melee. We did 2 versus 2, and our teams actually did tie the first round. I was the last person standing in the second round. The other team was, so because we tied, we all got gold for that one. It's been really challenging to get over the fear of hurting somebody. And I had a great talk with another woman fighter who said women have more challenges with the sport because we're afraid of hurting people, but we also have to be getting hit ourselves. Whereas men tend to have an easier time with that, with more rough and tumble play, typical male sports. And I definitely didn't realize that until I went to my first tournament, and I thought I hurt my opponent, and she was just laughing. So it's definitely a bit of a challenge, but I find the support for that is wonderful. The women fighters are amazing. The friendship, and honestly, my team are so great at encouraging me to keep going out there, even when I'm like, I don't want to hurt somebody. They're like, you're wearing metal for a reason, it's fine.
And yeah, like Will mentioned, you'll have people going at it and they're smacking each other with these swords and hammers and stuff. But afterwards, after the bout is done, and the knight marshal, is that right? They come over, they stop it. People often like hug at the end of it, and yeah, it sounds very oddly supportive environment.
I have to say, this is the only sport I've ever seen where you spend a minute literally beating the crap out of each other aggressively. People break swords over each other, and you're the best friends after. Like, everybody's a friend, everybody hugs. Like, I look forward to tournaments to see the guys from other teams. We always have our rivalry because like we want our team to win, but I hug all of them and I love them all, and like it's such a supportive sport. Everybody's happy to be here. Everybody wants to make sure everybody gets to work the next day and are not broken. And I don't feel like there's that strange competition that happens in other sports where it's standoffish and very like separating of each other. So that's what's drawn me to this, because I've always wanted to be involved, but I've always been hesitant because I also want to have friends and I want to like the people and have relationship after. And there's very much a deep relational aspect to this after we beat each other up.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And so what was this weapon that they are using over there again?
So we tend to refer to that as polearm. So these ones have axe heads on them. Sometimes they might have like a spear head. You can use the shaft as like defense. I'm not super well versed because, like I said, we don't have a lot of polearm fighters. And that one I know can be a bit aggressive because you hit a lot harder with the leverage of the longer weapon. Some people will not do that for safety reasons, which is fair. We do have big safety, like with gauntlets and certain things, and those are always checked. It's just, I think, a personal preference again of you get hit a little harder with that one.
Oh, and he's down on one knee. Is that a practice? I've seen a few people do that. So if you do get hit and you're like, oh, wait a second, you just go onto one knee and people won't hit you? Or...
Yeah, so like that's big in melees when we have like the group fights, because with these we typically do with points. When you hit somebody, like if you hit the torso or the head, those are worth 2 points. The limbs are worth 1 point. But when you're doing a melee, you're trying to get the other person to the ground. And so if you feel like if you're the last person there and you have everybody run at you, sometimes you'll take a knee because you don't want to get taken out. And sometimes if you have something, just an armor malfunction or something tweaked and you don't want to hurt yourself, you'll take a knee. Otherwise, with melees, the guys will take you down. They'll hook over you with axes. They can go around the helmet. They'll push you. It's pretty exciting to watch. It's a little terrifying to be in. When I did my melee, it was only 2-on-2. It's actually, when they came at me, 2 women came running at me. I screamed because my brain thought I was going to die. I didn't, but it's a very different type of fighting versus the points like they're doing. Brian here does this lovely hit where he does side to side to the head, and that's each one is 2 points.
Wow.
But this is definitely easier to manage when you're new to the sport, where the melees can be a little overwhelming.
And I have to imagine, so we can probably hear it on the mic here, but when they do make contact, like it sounds really loud from out here. Is it just like amplified in there? Like, or is it kind of muffled?
It's actually quite muffled. So there's a lot of padding in the helmets, and we hear a lot more than you do. And when you're wearing the helmet, you have a hard time also just hearing around you in general, which also helps so like you don't get concussions or head injuries because of how well padded the helmet is. But yeah, it makes a lovely sound.
Oh no, he's down. And he's back up. Wow. Interesting. Awesome. And so they're both using the same weapon this time, right?
Yes. So this is the longsword. So they use it with 2 hands. This is one of the ones where I think we have the most fighters in. It's a favorite. It's the one that I started in. I really enjoy it, especially if you don't feel coordinated, because you can use both hands versus your other hand, you don't know what to do with it. And you can get some really good force with the leverage with the handle. Yeah, it's a fun one.
That's so cool. Oh, wow. He's using the
pommel.
Oh, wow.
That's a pommel strike. Those ones are only worth 1 point, but I did my first pommel strike. They're a lot of fun because it's really satisfying because you just come down and it makes a really good sound on the person.
Wow. One more. Hitting swords, awesome. Wow. And so yeah, people do they develop their own kind of style of, I understand like there's Will mentioned like there's some like tradition, right? And studying up, but like is there any leeway there to kind of develop your own style and stuff? Or?
Yeah, so for like myself, I haven't done any reading of the manuscripts or the historical fighting. I've just learned from the team members, and like Brian has a very distinct fighting style, and it's one of those things where I feel very privileged to learn it from him because he is one of the best longsword fighters in Canada. He actually got to go to an international competition representing Canada, which was amazing. And yeah, so he's a very unique style. When you watch him, you can recognize it. And I know Will was mentioning earlier, he was fighting one of our members that is relatively new, but is practicing with another group. And he recognized the other fighters' styles of who he's been training with, because people have favorite techniques that they like to use. I definitely enjoy doing like going up to go high to hit somebody and then coming down and getting them. And that's something that is very much, I think, more of a Lethbridge team. Whereas like with Calgary, they do a lot of like up here twisting. So you can definitely notice like the team training as well. And we actually had a fun fight where Brian trained to fight one of the best Calgary fighters, and he was training to fight Brian, and they actually both changed their fight styles, and they both didn't know what to do.
Oh, no.
So it was a very entertaining fight, but it's one of those things where, yeah, you'll learn each other's styles, and so people are always trying to change things up a little when you fight the same people regularly.
Wow. And yeah, like does it get at all secretive, or are people just open about, like, it's going to come out on the field, so are people open about it, or you just,
It depends. I know last tournament Brian did actually share 2 of his secret moves that he does, and then we noticed that everybody else started doing them during the fight, which was great. So it depends on how we're feeling. That last tournament wasn't feeling as competitive because it wasn't like the big international one, because we did have Americans come up for our last international tournament as well. So it was more of just our fun group that we just decided to share a little bit more technique with each other, and it was a lot more of a learning and fun tournament versus get the medals and represent your team.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it looks like people are taking a break, getting out of the sun, so maybe we'll do the same. Thank you so much, Michaela. And yeah, we'll maybe be back to talk about some more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. Awesome. So we are joined by Will post battle. Yeah, I just want to kind of get inside your head after the battle and just like, yeah, I don't know, what's the first thing that comes to mind like when you're done here?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll definitely mention that I am what we call a little bit fighty brained there. It's just the mix of drugs after a fight. Basically, adrenaline is the main one that, kind of shuts down most of your other like non-essentials for the moment. And so if I'm a bit less well spoken than earlier, that's why. But,
No, that's totally fair.
part of the experience though. So, oh goodness, yeah. One of the things that like I find just so amazing about this group is you said it really well earlier. Remind me the exact words.
The exact words were, it fuels you as much as it fatigues you.
Yeah, that's so well put. Like I love it because it's one of those things where like mentally and like socially and emotionally for sure, like you just get something out of this. I think a lot of it's because you leave all the nonsense and everything at the door, stuff that will usually be like forefront of your mind socially. You kind of almost unconsciously let it go as you're fighting because like again your mind is in a more like kind of I don't want to say primal state, but like you're thinking of a little bit less of the extra pieces of life.
Yeah.
And that's like so relaxing. It's strange. It's odd how you're exerting so much physical energy, but like emotionally, and then again because you've got comrades and friends who you've all like blood, sweat, and tears together, right? You just have such a beautiful bond, and it's so irrelevant of everything else on the social aspect that might otherwise keep us from chit-chatting, and it's really quite refreshing.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry do what it takes. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.